Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Comic Character of the Week. We are talking about the Master of Magnetism himself, Magneto. My name is Tim the Terrible. This guy over here is Dan the Kelly Art. He is the road manager for the Ric Flair of comic books, Uncle Gary himself. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you are as excited about this episode as we are, because we are going to deep dive right into this. And Dan, I'm going to let you go ahead and take it away with our origins.
All right, so Magneto, first appearance was X-Men issue 1, which I think somebody here has a copy of.
Is one of you?
It's not me.
Guys?
It's me. Not... I have a reprint.
Oh, I've got a facsimile from 1963. It's real.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So, September 1963, X-Men 1, first appearance of Magneto, created by the legendary duo of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. As far as his origin, he was born Max Eisenhardt to a middle-class German Jewish family. When the Nazis rose to power, his father, mother, and sister were executed. He survived, and he was sent to Auschwitz. He escaped with a girl that was also there that he had fallen in love with when he was younger, Magda. After they escaped, they got married, and they had a daughter named Anya. And later on, when his powers manifested fully for the first time, they were attacked by an angry mob, and they burned down their house while his daughter Anya was still inside of it, which made him just lose his mind with rage. He unleashed his powers, killed everyone in the mob. Magda was terrified of him, so she fled while she was still pregnant with the twins that would become Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch. To find out more about one of them, go check out our episode on the Scarlet Witch from a few weeks ago.
Good episode, by the way.
Yes.
It was a good one. Thank you.
Yeah, so, and also when he left Auschwitz, when they escaped, he started going by the name Magnus. And then she runs, and he's wanted by the authorities for massacring all these people, and he's searching for her, so he creates a new identity of Eric Lenscher. He moves to Israel, and he starts working in a psychiatric hospital where he meets and befriends Charles Xavier. Neither one of them know that the other one is a mutant until they are attacked by Baron Strucker and Hydra, at which point they each learn that the other one is a mutant based on having to use their powers. Eric realizes that their worldviews are just not compatible, so he goes off, and that's when he goes and creates the identity of Magneto, and then pick up an X-Men 1, Magneto fights the X-Men, and we go from there.
All right.
As far as his powers, it's the Master of Magnetism. He controls metal, whether it's magnetic or not. In real life, he controls metal. He can create electromagnetic fields, electromagnetic pulses. He can fly using the Earth's electromagnetic energy. He can kind of create force fields. The helmet that he wears helps him, gives him some degree of invulnerability from psychic attacks, and even when he doesn't wear it. And then it's a bunch of, different variations on, on those kind of power sets with being able to control metal and electromagnetic fields.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, before we dive further into the Master of Magnetism, let's go ahead and take a sponsor break real quick. Don't forget, go ahead and head over to w.gg. They've been our sponsor for quite a while. We all love them here, and we know you will too. Head over there, use keyword code -X at checkout to save 10% on your order. Once again, that is w.gg, keyword code -X to save 10%. All right, enough of the business. Let's go ahead and dive into some scenarios on how Magneto works best. Uncle Gary, go ahead and take that away.
All right. Well, Magneto, when he first appeared, was pretty much just You know, he was another, you know, exceptionally powered evil character, you know, and it was just, he was kind of one dimensional. He starts the first appearance was X-Men 1, the second appearance was X-Men 4, where it's first appearance of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, where you have Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, Toad in it. I think Mastermind was in that first.
Too,
yeah. So Mastermind was there too. So he's just, you know, he's just another leader of another group of bad guys, and he stayed one dimensional for a long time. When they started fleshing out his backstory, that's when, to me, Magneto got really interesting. When they fleshed out more of his and Xavier's opposing worldviews, and it was quite a revelation when they had the miniseries that revealed that, you know, he was a concentration camp survivor. That was quite poignant, and that really added a layer to him and really kind of explained his hatred of humanity and why, you know, he was perfectly willing to take the reins and rule himself on what he thought would be, because he thought he could do it better. I like the Magneto that is more compatible with Xavier's worldview, not quite accepting it, but like the Magneto that ended up becoming the headmaster for Xavier's school. That's the Magneto I like, where he's still
when he was leading the New Mutants, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I like that Magneto. He was still a badass, but he was trying to become more accepting and to become more like Xavier, but to meet more in the middle, you know, to not abandon his ferocity, but to come off as megalomania, you know, because the big megalomania aspect of him I didn't like so much, but I like more where he kind of regained his, you know, humanity and wanted to meet mankind in the middle and try to work with them. That's the Magneto I like. And at times he's disillusioned. At times he loses his cool, and, you know, he's about to dip back into it. But I find that conflicted Magneto much more interesting than just the one that wants to lord over everyone. But again, that's just my opinion, and I'm going to be interested to hear what you fellas think about it. But that's the Magneto that I find the most fascinating.
So I'll go ahead and go next. I think that there's two things that I think really makes this character work. One is solitude, and the other is his version of misunderstood passion. Right. So when there's solitude, like when he's on asteroid M or wherever he may be, and he has decided he's like, everything I've done has been for nothing. I'm going to go and I'm going to live alone. Just don't bother me and I won't bother you. What do? They go and bother him, and he tells them that he's like, I told you, just leave me be. I'm here. I'm not doing anything. I'm not messing with the humans. I'm not messing with Homo sapiens. I am Homo superior and I am alone. And they're like, no, we know you're bad. We're going to do this. And then they go and attack him. And he's like, I told you. And he ends it. He's done. When he's
Tim,
doing.
Tim, can I interject something there? What reminds me of? A few years, probably 5 or 6 years ago, there's a death row inmate. He's on death. I mean, the dude's already convicted murder. He's on death row. And he told them, do not give me a roommate. Do not give me a cellmate. Leave me alone. Do not give me a cellmate. They gave him a cellmate, and he killed the cellmate. And he said, I told you.
Yep, I told you to leave me alone, and you didn't listen to me. This is what happens.
You didn't listen. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Or I did mean to interrupt you. But that is exactly what it reminded me. I told you to leave me alone, and you went and screwed with me.
That's a perfect example. And another example in more modern times is in Jim Lee and Chris Claremont's X-Men, right? The second issue has him on the cover. He was up on Asteroid M, wanted to be left alone, and they just couldn't do that. They had to go in there and fart around, and they paid the ultimate price. But the misunderstood passion on his end, right? Because in Magneto's eyes, he's not the villain. He is the oppressed, and humans are the oppressors, right? And if there is a if there isn't a better lens to look through with modern day societal issues, especially what's going on today, right? Magneto is the perfect lens for those glasses, because his view is he is the oppressed going against the oppressor, right? The humans are the oppressors. He is the oppressed. Mutant kind as a whole is the oppressed, and it is up to him and only him to save them. So his misunderstood passion leads to the death of innocents, which to him are necessary casualty, and even some mutants have to die for this ultimate utopia of Homo superior to take over and be the dominant species on Earth. And that goes right into what you were saying about the confliction between him and Xavier, where
Yep.
Xavier is like, we can coexist, we can live peacefully together. It's possible to do that, but you have to be willing to do that. And his misunderstood passion leads him, and he's like, no, it can never happen. They will always hate us, they will always fear us, and you know this, and that's why it has to be this way. So solitude, misunderstood passion. Dan, what about you? What do you think works best with Magneto?
I think he works best when he kind of straddles the line between hero and villain.
Mhm.
Like Gary said, when he was first introduced, he was kind of a one-dimensional character. He's like,
Yep.
I'm a mutant, I'm evil, the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, which thank God they dropped the evil from that and just the Brotherhood of Mutants now. But, you know, I'm a mutant, I'm evil, and I want to rule the world. And like that was kind of it. It wasn't until Claremont started writing him that
Mhm.
he became a more well-rounded character. And then especially in X-Men 150, when it's revealed that he was a Holocaust, that he was Jewish, that he was a Holocaust survivor, then it starts to put in in context of, okay, yeah, he's a mutant, and that's why he wants to rule everything. But like that's when you start to see like, oh, okay, this is why he hates humanity. And then the more that they dig into that with him, through the years, you start, with Auschwitz and
He
with
starts to gain sympathy.
with
Yes.
Auschwitz and with his, his wife and daughter and all that. Like you start to see like, okay, this isn't a guy that was just like, I want to rule the world and evil. Like, it built on, on him, and you see, okay, this is how he developed like this. And
Mhm.
it's one of those like, okay, I don't really agree with it, but I understand, understand where
Yeah.
he's coming from now.
Yep.
And
What you're doing is wrong, but I understand why you're doing it.
And kudos to Claremont for introducing that concept of the prison, of him being a Holocaust survivor. That was one of the most brilliant one of the most brilliant ways that I can think of to enhance a character's backstory, a
Mhm.
character that really needed it. I mean, that was absolutely brilliant, fit the character perfectly, and explained so much of what had
Mhm.
happened previously. It was just, I think that was one of the most brilliant creations of a backstory to fit a character.
Yeah, and it shows him like it really puts into perspective where like I said, like you can't understand, okay, I see where he's coming from now. And then when he gets conflicted of he's just trying to do what he thinks is best for his people's survival, because he's seen already what what will be done to his people just for them being different, and he doesn't
Yep.
want that to happen again. But as he grew as a character and he sees like, all right, maybe this isn't the right way. Like I don't know that Xavier's way is the best way, but like there's got to be
Mhm.
kind of a middle ground. And I know that Stan Lee would say when he created, or when when they created the X-Men, that it was like Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, and that
Mhm.
was Xavier, and that was Magneto. And I don't know how much of that is true and how much of that is him kind of adding that that to it later to give it a little extra flavor. But
Pizzazz.
that kind of is how the two of them were.
They have the same goals, but their
Very
passion
different
is,
approaches.
Yep.
yeah, exactly. And with that, let's go ahead and move into some badass moments. One, two, maybe three of them. I'll go ahead and start that. I've got two right off the bat. So the first one is during Fatal Attractions when he pulls the adamantium off
Yep.
of Wolverine's skeletal structure. That, as a kid, reading that book, like I was reading all the titles. So Uncanny X-Men, X-Men, Excalibur, X-Factor, and X-Force. 5 titles were out, and each of those got the Fatal Attractions
And Wolverine.
and Wolverine. So that's 6, yeah. So each of them got their own holographic card cover or whatever it is.
You know what saddens me about what you just said is you read that as a kid.
I did. I
was an adult when
I was a kid when that came out.
And what's funny too, that was X-Men number 25. What character was the hologram on the cover?
I think it was Magneto.
It was Gambit.
Was it? Oh my God.
You're like, why is Gambit I mean, yeah, he's cool, but why is he the hologram on this issue? It should be Wolverine or it should be Magneto.
Yeah.
But it's Gambit.
But the thing is both of you can remember how you felt when you read that story.
That was amazing.
You're sitting there, you're reading this, it's coming up to it, and you're like, what's gonna happen? Okay, Wolverine's gonna put a stop to this. No, he's not. Oh my God.
I'm not sure if it was.
You also kind of think, what the hell took him so long to do this?
Well,
restraint.
Even more of a, I mean, as cool as that was, right? I don't know if it happened in that particular issue, and maybe it did. I'm just remembering. But when Wolverine popped the bone claw,
that was the next one.
Yeah,
that was amazing. You know, that was like, ooh,
that was a jaw-dropping moment.
Yes.
Well, with all of that, and we'll get into more of Fatal Attractions later. My second ultimate badass moment for Magneto is when he did something good that everybody perceived as a swindle, and that was in Secret Wars, when they all were on Battle World and he was put with the villains. And what did he do? He's like, I'm not going to stick around with you guys. I'm going to go over here. And he went over to hang out with the good guys. And immediately they were mistrusting of him. They're like, no, you're Magneto. You're not coming over here. We don't want nothing to do with you. And what did he do when what happened to the Wasp? He saved her.
Oh, and he made the home.
Yeah. So he was and that was a precursor of leading up to Uncanny 200, if I'm not mistaken, or at least the seeds were starting to be planted around that time. But that I thought was incredibly badass. You have this master villain for the Marvel Universe, like top tier Doctor Doom, you know, for Earthbound villains, and the first thing he does when the Beyonder puts him on Battle World is he's like, fuck you guys, I'm going over here. I love it. I thought it was great. Dan, what about you? Top 3 badass moments?
Well, you stole one.
Sorry.
You know, I mean, that was the first one I think popped into all of our heads when Sal chose Magneto is X-Men 25, when he just rips the adamantium out of Wolverine's body.
And the monologue during the whole thing.
And the way he did it, where it was popping out through all the skin.
Yeah.
It was so brutal and gruesome. And that led to Xavier being like, all right, I'm just turning your mind off. But that was such a jaw-dropping moment. Then, like Gary said, that the issue that followed, I think the Wolverine issue was the one after that, like at the very last page when he pops the bone claws. Yeah. Because originally, when he popped the claws for the first time in X-Men without the gloves, people were like, what? Because everybody just assumed the claws
were part of that thing, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the gloves. And then, but then it was like, okay, well, he got these claws when they did the Weapon X thing. And then when he pops the bone claws, it's like, oh, so he had claws before that. Like, that was a whole other dimension. But that's a whole other character.
Yeah.
And going back further, Dan, when he was first introduced, you thought the metal claws were part of the costume.
Yeah.
And then it was several issues into the new X-Men where they showed that they came out of his hand.
It was when they were captured by the Sentinels and they were in their normal clothes, and he like popped them to bust out of the thing they were.
And that was a big reveal then. So kind of cool that they got to use it again in a different way.
Yeah.
So my actually X-Men 25 I put had 2 badass moments, not just the Wolverine thing, but when the government, he's up on Asteroid M and the world's like, all right, we're going to put this field up around the Earth to keep you to keep you out. Your powers aren't going to work here. And he's just like,
Silly human.
So he goes out and he makes, an EMP that's so powerful that he shut down all of the technology on the entire planet. And that's what caused the X-Men to go up to Asteroid M, which then caused him to rip all the metal out of Wolverine's body, because he was like, yeah, you're the whole world back to the Stone Age.
Wow.
Back to the Dark Ages. Another one I got was from the Astonishing X-Men series. I can't remember the issue number.
From the Age of Apocalypse run, or
no, it's the Joss Whedon one.
The newer stuff, okay.
So in the first story arc of that, when they brought Colossus back, and these aliens were trying to destroy the Earth, so they made this basically a gigantic bullet that they fired at the Earth, and it was going to hit the Earth and explode it and kill everyone. So Kitty Pryde goes in it, and she uses all of her power to make the bullet intangible so it'll pass through the Earth. But the problem was it took so much power for her to do that she became bonded to the bullet, and then it kept going through the cosmos, and everyone's like, well, she's gone now, she's dead, because it stayed intangible, so that as it went through the cosmos, it would just pass through planets and everything without damaging anything. But everyone thought she was lost to them. So when he goes to the X-Men and he's like, I'm going to reform, I'm going to join you, like, they don't believe him. So he goes, all right, this is what I'm going to do. So he
hold my beer, I'll be back.
He uses his powers, and it's so powerful that he reaches out through the cosmos, finds, and this is a long time has gone past, finds the bullet, brings it, not just finds it, but then brings it back so that they can get Kitty out of it and save her. And then that's when they accept him, be like, okay, we believe you now.
All right, that's good enough. All right,
yeah,
cool.
there you go.
And then the final one I got is not even from an X-Men book. It is from Captain America 367. It was during the Acts of Vengeance storyline, which that storyline that ran through Marvel Comics. For anyone that doesn't know, is really cool. It's someone came to all the villains and said, here's how you're going to win. You're all going to switch opponents. So Dr. Doom, you're always fighting the Fantastic Four. You're going to go fight this person. Magneto, instead of the X-Men, you're going to go here. Red Skull, instead of fighting Cap, you're going to go here. We're going to switch up all, all of these rivalries. And, that's how you're going to defeat, that's how you're going to win, because they're not going to know how to fight you. And it was a really cool storyline because you got to see characters fighting other characters that you didn't get to see. Mm-hmm. So when, all the villains were there, Magneto recognized Red Skull, as being a Nazi from when he was younger. So in Captain America 367, he finds out where Red Skull's secret lair is and bursts in and is like, Skull, we need to have words. And he says, are you the same Red Skull that served Hitler in World War II? And he says, I am, but I'm on my second body. And he's like, well, my family, he's like, I don't think you had anything personally to do with it, but my family was killed by the Nazis, and I'm not going to stand for this. And then Red Skull has some guys come in and try and kill him with guns, and he's like, whatever. Red Skull tries to blow his death dust in his face, and Magneto's got his force field on. He's like, whatever. So Red Skull keeps trying to escape. He can't escape Magneto. Everything Magneto just goes through, captures.
What issue number is this?
It's 367.
Oh yeah, I'm picking this
up. And the issue ends like Magneto or Red Skull was trying to escape on this underground train. Magneto finds it and he's like, metal train. Captures Red Skull, he gets knocked out. I'm sure Gary, probably remembers what happened next. So the Red Skull wakes up and Magneto has him in this underground bunker that was like a bomb shelter. And he tells him, he's like, you're here, you're 20 feet underground. I've removed the ladder so you can't climb out. Over there in the corner is 20 it's like 10 gallons, 20 gallons of bottled water. I'm going to close this hatch. Nobody knows that you were here except for me. All you're going to have is the darkness, the air, and the water. And you could think about what you've done that's brought you here. Closes the door on him, leaves him for dead. And it's the Red Skull, so he he gets out eventually to go on cause it. But that shows like, all right, Magneto wasn't going to sacrifice
Wow.
what he believes are his morals for any amount of victory. He's not going to team up with someone with a literal Nazi, and then not just that, but then does the hero's job for him, captures him, drops him in a hole in the ground, and leaves him there, intending like, I'm just going to leave you here with enough water that you're going to survive for a little bit, so that you can think about your life, and then you're going to die because I'm leaving you in this hole in the ground with no way to escape.
That's amazing. I think that's top so far. That's
So
that's
that one to me is a pretty amazing one. So what about you, Gary? I'm sure you've got 3 good ones as well.
All right. Well, the first one that I'm surprised nobody mentioned is that in X-Men 25, Magneto ripped the adamantium out of Wolverine.
When did
I know. How did y'all miss that?
I didn't read that issue. Tell me what happens, please.
I heard there was a cool Gambit hologram.
Yeah, there's a Gambit. Listen, of course we have to say that, and that's how cool it was. It's like the other week when we did Swamp Thing, right? Of course, Swamp Thing 9 has got to be one of the covers that we've all got to pick, right? So, I mean, same thing with this. Of course,
I saw that all of your covers were Swamp Thing 9.
Yeah, I mean,
well, that was the gag. The first one that we're going to show was all of them were going to be Swamp Thing 9, and then the second card I gave all the second place ones. But yeah, of course, it had to be Swamp Thing 9. But
yeah, I mean, X-Men 25, like you said, it's the one that's so obvious, but it's obvious for a reason, because it's such an iconic moment in comics that you can't help but say it.
That's right.
Well, look at it this way. Like DC had the Death of Superman and Nightfall going on in their era, or in their side of comic books. But over here, that particular scene is as huge of a milestone as something like that in comic books. The amount of jaw dropping that happened at once.
Absolutely. I mean, to make that major of a change to Wolverine, who was, I mean, in the 90s,
the most popular Marvel character at the time.
Yeah, in the 90s is when his popularity really exploded, and he was everywhere.
Yeah,
and like we said, it wasn't just a one punch, man. The second punch came in that Wolverine issue, and he pops the bone claw. So I mean, all this is interspersed together that it was like, wow, you got knocked on your ass twice with jaw dropping moments, and that's when comics are the
one
best.
Issue.
Yeah, well, in 2 issues.
Well,
Well, but in one storyline. In one storyline. So of course we're going to have that, and I'm glad we all did have that. Okay, now I have a badass moment that I think was pretty cool, and a lot of times when we see these things, I always like to highlight a lot of the good things even a bad character or a bad guy can do, and so my other 2 are kind of good things. In the Uncanny X-Men 534.1, it was one of these point issues, right?
Oh, I remember those.
Yeah, I know. Listen, for a guy that's trying to put my collection in order, a book that comes out 10 years later than the original is supposed to go in between 434 and 435. Come on, give me a break.
They're like, here's number 0. Yeah, you're about 50 years late on that one.
-1.
At least 0 can go right in the middle. I hate that this is supposed to go inside, but we digress. The X-Men are on the island of Utopia, which is in the San Francisco Bay, and San Francisco gets hit with an earthquake.
Oh, I know. Yeah, this is a good one.
Magneto, knowing that the earthquake's about to come, I guess he was sensing it on the fault lines, stifles the impact of the earthquake, a major earthquake that's hitting San Fran, by reinforcing every building with his force field, the Golden Gate Bridge, all that, holding it together and easing the shifting of the tectonic plates. That's pretty freaking badass right there, right?
Control of
the metal. He pulled all the metal from the earth and like reinforced the building with it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And then use the metal in the earth to kind of control the plates to, lessen the effects. But, think of the bridges swaying, the building swaying, and all that. And he did that to help humanity. And it also was garnering, they were treated as heroes then. The fact that Magneto had done that. And it was, again, when the X-Men were on Utopia and they were considered friendly.
Is that one main cover where he's sitting there floating in the Zen position? Is that around that time?
That's around
I
that time.
think so.
Yeah, I really like that that whole storyline where they had the X-Men out there in San Francisco. Like I enjoyed that period of X-Men books a lot.
And the fact that they were accepted by the city, I think the mayor giving them the key to the city and things like that. I like that.
The mayor would be like, "Oh, something's happening. Call the X-Men for help."
My third moment is very small. It's a very small moment, but again, it's a heroic moment. And I'm going to read a couple of quotes from it because we're going to have Codex Theater here.
By all means, go ahead.
Thank you. Magneto has just assumed the job of headmaster with the New Mutants. This is after what has happened in X-Men 200, and Xavier is not in the picture anymore, and Magneto is going to become headmaster, and we'll see if we can see it. There you go. There's a great picture of him standing at Xavier's desk, and he's trying to tell the New Mutants, he's going to be their new headmaster. They're very skeptical, but he's trying to follow Xavier's dream. Xavier's gone now. He's trying to follow that dream. So the New Mutants are not entirely on board. I think Cannonball, one of my favorite characters, wants to give him a chance to see, let him prove himself. The others, not so much.
Sunspot typically was a dick to him.
Yeah, Sunspot was. The New Mutants go to their local watering, hole where they hang out in the town.
Where they get soda pops and milkshakes.
That's right. Danny Moonstar does not want to walk back. Sam offers to walk back. She says, no, I want some time alone. I got a lot to process. Well, some frat house punks see her walking alone, and they decide that they're going to ambush her, attack her. And I think, you figure they're going to rape her, right? So they're going to attack her. She gets away with help from her horse, Brightwind, and helps, and she gets her way, but she's been injured. She's been hit in the head. And so this gets back to Brightwind takes her back to the academy, and Magneto finds out, and the horse has got metal from the car the guys were in. He kind of attacked it. He's got the metal flakes on the car. So Magneto, doing his hoodoo, is able to track them a little bit and finds the vehicle, the Jeep that they were in. And he catches these frat boys and he confronts them. And he blows the door down. And when he attacks them, they're saying, let's see, less than an hour ago, you assaulted a young woman. Yeah, says who? We never. You wrecked the door, man. That crime shall not go unpunished. And then the punks are grabbing guns, crowbars. Want to bet? And we fought back, and he says, he said, she was asking for it, mister. So now he's got one guy with a crowbar wrapped around his neck. The other guy, he's dismantled the other guy's gun. He's taken nails out of the door he's blown apart, and he's got hovering at the other guy ready to impale him. And Magneto says to these punks, frat boy punks, you are scum, the dregs of society, a disgrace to your misbegotten species. With all the benefits of wealth and position, education and health, you amuse yourselves by hurting innocents who neither thought nor did you any harm. It wasn't our fault, mister. She asked for it. Do not lie to me, little man, ever. At that point, he explodes the house and he explodes their vehicle outside. And they're
wetting and soiling themselves by this point.
They are wetting and soiling themselves. And Magneto tells them, once with far less cause, I would have quite cheerfully have slain you, rent your bodies limb from limb as easily as I did your house. Indeed, I am sorely tempted. The world would not miss such as you. But I am older, a little sadder, and I hope wiser. I have learned a better way. Mine is the power to destroy, but I choose not to profit from my example. The evil you do others returns upon you 1,000-fold. It scars both body and far worse soul. continue down this cruel and bloody road you've chosen one day, you're certain to meet one not as forgiving as I. Is that what you want? The choice remains yours. Farewell.
That is chilling. That is amazing.
Great writing, Chris
Yeah.
Claremont. Dude, they turn themselves in. These assholes turn themselves in. Now, the New Mutants are coming there because they're following Magneto and following the horse, and they're trying to get there. And I think Sam says, hold back, let's see what happens. And they see what Magneto does, and of course this wins them over, right? Big time. And they don't even have to, they tell Magneto he's left. He doesn't even realize that he scared them so bad they turn themselves in for attacking her. So, and of course they give him a chance there. But what great writing that is, right? Here's Magneto, who has recently seen the error of his ways, and he's trying to be more like Xavier. He's holding it in. He wants to kill these assholes.
Oh yeah.
And I think what I just read, isn't that amazing words, what he tells them? You want to do harm to somebody that never even thought of harming you. Not just didn't harm you, but never even thought of harming you. And Magneto, and just the rage, and he's trying to keep it together. He's trying to keep it together. And then when they said she was asking for it, he blew all the shit up around them. He protected them, but he blew the house up around them, blew the car up, and they're all hovering against what little section of wall he left in place for them to cower against. But to me, that's a small moment, right? It's small, but I think it's pretty freaking badass.
I think the best part of the line that hits, at least me, when he goes, but I'm a little bit sadder and hopefully a little bit wiser.
Yes.
Because it shows his character, like, I've gone through all these struggles over the years, and it hasn't gotten him what he's wanted for his people. And it's just, anybody that's grown older and has strived for something and has not reached it, you get that little bit of sadness in you, and like something like that really hits home.
And now he's leading these young mutants, right? He's got to be an example now too. So
in a moment like that, especially for Moonstar, and if I remember right, I can't remember what particular issue or anything like that, but I know that particular event has been referenced before. And that's the good thing about stuff like that is that those characters don't forget, and they remember that, and that's why they followed him through his entire tenure leading.
And Claremont's he's strongly against sexual assault. Are you familiar with Avengers 200?
Not offhand, no, but I'm sure we've talked about it before.
Well, Avengers 200, Marcus, who's a version of Immortus, pretty much seduces Miss Marvel, impregnates her with himself.
Oh, we've talked about this.
It's just a ridiculous storyline. Nobody, and this was an anniversary issue, right? So Shooter was involved with this. Jerry Conway, George Perez drew it. But these people that wrote it, nobody's claiming this story, right? It offended Claremont so much. I got to talk with him about this a little bit. And he wrote Avengers Annual 10, where Carol reads the Avengers the riot act for leaving her with Marcus, who they knew was manipulating her mind a little bit. So it was really screwed up. So this is another instance of Claremont coming down hard on somebody that was going to be a sexual predator. You know? It doesn't come out and say in this issue that they were going to rape him, but there's two of them. They're saying there's three of them. Hold her down.
You get the innuendos that this is going to take place.
This is exactly what these assholes were going to do. So again, this is Claremont using his voice to through his pen to further a point. And again, I know we don't sit there usually just read passages, and thank you for indulging me on this.
Dude, but that's perfect.
I just thought it was very important to read those words and to hear Magneto say it. And like Dan said, I'm a little bit older, I'm a little bit sadder, but I hope I'm a little bit wiser. That's poignant as hell. I just
And
just to me,
that's
that just blows me away. That you know,
and that right there is why these are badass moments. But let's go to the other side of that coin. And Dan, I want you to start us off with this. Let's go with some criticisms. What are criticisms for Magneto?
Really, for me, it's just kind of how he was when he was introduced, like a one-dimensional character. Because, like you said, until Claremont got a hold of him, and really until X-Men 150, when they, when he, revealed that he was a Holocaust survivor, and then built up with that, with him and the other writers over the years, it was just I'm evil and I want mutants to rule and humans to go away, and that was kind of it for the character. And and even when he would show up outside of the X-Men, it would like in Avengers and stuff, it was like, oh, he's just the bad guy. And but when that element of him was introduced, that's when you get the stuff like the Captain America issue I referenced, where he's going after the Red Skull, who's supposed to be teaming up with, and he's like, I'm not going to team up with a Nazi. Like, all these other ones, you're okay working with him, like not me. So when he, whenever he's looked at as this one-dimensional character, that's what's annoying. And one thing I'll say too, like in the other mediums where he's been in live action a bunch of times and animation, why can't he have a German accent? Why he's got a British accent, he's got an American accent, he's German.
That's fair.
That's very fair. That's fair.
I'm going to take the second chair on this one. Gary, we'll let you have the last word on this segment, but I'm gonna run right along with you, Dan. The one-dimensional bit with Magneto, but thankfully that's in the earlier parts of the X-Men, right, where they had to do a lot with a lot of panels and as few pages as possible. So it was the story of the week, it was the story of the month, and they needed that type of villain to fulfill that type of role, and he did it very well. But it didn't leave him with a lot of substance. It didn't leave him with a lot of character development, and the character development that he did have was very small, and that was unfortunate for a character that is supposed to be, like the X-Men villain, even as much so as one of the premier Marvel villains. And when he's the type of villain that's just like, curse you all, the mutants will rule, the humans will die, and that's the extent of the emotion that he has, it doesn't give people a lot of reason to cheer for the good guys other than to be like, well, the X-Men are going to win again, so there's that. But like both of you have said before, when Claremont got in there and he took over and he started giving reasons behind the things that Magneto was doing, and giving him character development and depth and emotion and morals and standards and things like that, that's when it started to change. So once again, the one-dimensional bit with Magneto, I think is right on point, Dan. And Gary, you can have last word on this subject.
All right. And before I get that, just a quick, we talk about not, why would I work with you? You're a Nazi. One of my favorite scenes in The Rocketeer is at the end when it's revealed, that when you got the Nazis and the mobsters find out they're working with the Nazis, they turn the Dalton says, "What do you care, Eddie? You're getting paid." He said, "Hey, buddy, I may not make an honest buck, but I'm as red, white, and blue as the next guy." I love that.
I think what he said, he's like, I may not make an honest buck, but I'm 100% American.
That's what it was. I may not make an honest buck, but I'm 100% American. And there's a scene where the cops and the mobsters are like side by side shooting at the Nazis, and they're looking at each other like, wait a minute, what the hell? But yeah, you freaking Nazis, and listen, this, I'm digressing again. Sorry. Somehow in this country, there's some people that have got the asinine idea that Nazis are okay. The hell with that. What the hell is wrong with you? One of my favorite Sergeant Rock covers is Sergeant Rock 291. It's in the snow. Sergeant Rock has got this Nazi's head buried in the snow. You don't even see his face, and he's choking the shit out of him. And I wrote in my comic my post, my cover of the week. I said,
Mhm.
let's start, for those of you that have forgotten how to properly greet a Nazi, let Sergeant Frank Rock show you the correct way. That's how you greet a freaking Nazi. But I digress. Anyway, so
It's easy to get distracted.
it's easy to get distracted when you're talking Nazis.
I hate Illinois Nazis.
Oh man, yeah, there you go. I
But
know.
for Magneto, let's get into
Yeah.
some criticisms.
For Magneto, you guys are exactly 100% right. The one-dimensional early Magneto was just a megalomaniac. I'm going to take over the world. Blah blah
Mhm.
blah. I'm in charge. I have all this power. I'm going to fight you. When they created that great backstory,
Mhm.
it added so much richness and so much texture to the character that you could sympathize and you could understand. You may not agree with him, you may understand it, and he was he was the Doctor Doom of the X-Men, and Doom was like that too. But I thought, just like that, Doom to me is so much more interesting when
Mhm.
you get into the feelings of Latharia that he rules and how he feels about his people, where he has such love for his people, and that's where I find him more interesting, is even though, yes, he's ruling them, but he wants the best for his people, will do
Mhm.
whatever it takes to protect his people. So Doom to me became more textured when you gave him something that he is passionate about and
Yeah.
that he cares about. So much in the same way, Doom was one-dimensional until you started really going into his backstory. Magneto, again, Chris Claremont, stroke of brilliance to make him a Holocaust survivor and to put
Oh,
that
yeah.
tragedy in his past. So I'm like you, one-dimensional Magneto, no fun.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are getting into what I think is some of the best parts of this episode, all the talking and the deep dives into why these characters work, how they tick, what's right with them, what's wrong with them, leads us up to this. And we're going to do top covers. Before we do that, though, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to find us on all the socials. All you got to do is type in at the Codex Station. That is where we will be. Your favorite social media platforms and where we live stream right now. Make sure to hit the like, share, subscribe, and follow so you don't miss content like this anytime. Once again, at the Codex Station. So, with that, Gary, your leading duties are not over. We're going to start with your covers.
Let's look at my covers.
All
See what I
right.
picked, if I can remember.
Let's see. Well, first off, since
I'm
Sal's not here,
Yeah,
let's
do Sal.
we'll do Sal's covers
Let's
first,
do
and
Sal.
then we will jump right over to yours.
I do
I know.
remember.
Let's see how much overlap we have.
Well, I already know that. Let me see.
Well,
here.
yeah, you've seen them all. So.
Yeah, one cover is overlapped. Maybe more. I don't know. But this is what Sal's got. So we've got Magneto #3 right there on the left from the Marvel Now era. Very solid cover. I think that's nice. It's a different costume, different look for Magneto. I remember reading a couple issues of that, but I didn't go much farther than that. But the cover is solid, and I'm very curious to hear Sal's reasoning behind choosing that cover. Then we go into Uncanny X-Men. What is that? 112?
Yes.
Magneto Triumphant. That is an amazing story. This is where the new team of the X-Men meet Magneto for the first time. Is that right? Am I
Second
remembering
time.
that right? Second time, yeah.
104 was the first time.
That's right,
Which
yeah.
was the one where they fought him under the volcano? Was that 104 or this
I
one?
think it's this one.
It's this one, and they get, well, in 112, Magneto whoops their ass. This is right after Maresmo, and they're at the carnival, and then he takes them to the volcano. 113 is where the fight is under the volcano.
Yeah, that's a great cover too.
But look at that cover in the center. What's
okay,
he doing
fellas? Who did that cover?
I couldn't tell you.
Dan,
Byrne?
That's Perez that did it, isn't it?
That is George Perez.
Oh.
When I for one of my trivias, I had that out where you have to guess the artist that I do at Comic Logic.
Yeah.
And I put that in knowing everybody was going to say John Byrne because that's right in the middle of the Byrne run.
Yeah.
This was a Perez cover.
That is
So,
such a great
Perez
cover.
never really drew the X-Men, but he did a couple covers for him.
Yeah.
I think he did one of the annuals with Archon.
Yeah.
I think he did that annual. But yes, he was
Yeah.
not famous for doing it, but he did that cover, and that's an amazing cover.
Look
It
at
is
that. He's
fantastic.
got Colossus under his control. He's got Wolverine right where he wants him. And
Yep.
this is peek into what's coming in the future, right? And
Yeah.
then
Yeah, I could see how you could mistake, it's like, oh yeah, it's it was it was Byrne that was doing the run, but you look at it like the way he drew Storm's face is very much similar to the way that Byrne drew it. Like,
it is.
The way he drew this on here, him and Byrne had pretty similar styles at the time.
Yeah, and then let's go to that beautiful Jim Lee cover. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on it because we are going to be talking more about this as we go through the covers.
Yeah.
So that right there, guys, we all know that is an amazingly classic X-Men cover, let alone a classic Magneto cover. And I'll leave it at that while we go into Uncle Gary's covers.
You're going to see two of the same covers.
Oh, well, let's take a peek.
Yep.
Oh, what do you know?
Oh, there you go. In the same spot.
Gary, take it away. Let us know why you chose these.
All right. So let's go with the one that's different. So I didn't think anybody else would choose this. Maybe you or Dan will surprise me. But this is Avengers 47 is the first one. That is the great John Buscema. I just think that's a great classic old school Magneto cover. And since the Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver are Avengers now, he's not quite happy with that, and he wants them back.
That's
so
with a half-size cape too.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the purple helmet and
Yep. The costume was different. It was a 3-issue run that Magneto was involved, 47, 48, and 49. But anyway, I just thought that was a pretty dynamic cover. And who doesn't love the characters on the side of the book, right?
Yeah.
Cap, Herc, Hawkeye, Giant or Goliath, and the Wasp. I'm a sucker. Plus, you get the great, the great floating heads in the top too. So, I mean, I just think that's a classic old school cover. So that's Avengers 47.
Right on.
And then the aforementioned X-Men 112. Kudos for you, Dan, for knowing that was George Perez. That tricks a lot of people.
Well, it tricked me because Byrne, like we just said, Byrne was in the middle of doing this, and I'm like, that's John Byrne right there.
And it's sure, and the Storm face, like Dan said, really does look like Byrne. Absolutely. And then, of course, the last one, that great Jim Lee cover is iconic. I wouldn't be surprised if all of us have that one on there. So,
well, let's go ahead and go to Dan's, and we'll find out.
I do not have that one.
Whoa.
Look at that. Dan's different. He's got issue 2, though.
So, well, I'll start with that one. Then I've got issue 2 because, the issue 1, it is iconic. But to me, like, when I was thinking about picking that, I knew other people would pick it. But, like, as great as it is, he's too jacked in it. And I really think that the cover for issue 2 represents him a bit more. Like, you see that he's got some damage to him. And the look on, and he's got the X-Men are behind him. Like, it looks like they're kind of broken statues or broken metal. He's got Xavier wrapped up and where it says Magneto triumphant, but he's just got this like weary, tired look to him. Like, yes, I've won, but it's almost this like, why do we have to keep doing this? Yeah.
Right on. Yeah. Okay.
Love it.
Yeah, so I'll go to the other one, which I mentioned before, the Captain America 367. That's the one when he goes after the Red Skull, and it's just such a great cover because you're not expecting, like, oh, the villain's going to fight the villain, but it fits with him when he, like I said, it's a great one to read when he just literally bursts through the wall, like breaks the wall down, bursts through the wall, and he's like, Skull, we need to talk. And like I said, the way it ends is just brutal. But I love that cover of him just standing over him with his boot on his head.
Yeah.
And then the middle one from the miniseries Magneto Testament. So you see him like this one. I thought was like a pretty powerful cover. You see
it
him
is.
as a child. It's a almost like the Schindler's List type of thing where, the girl that had it was black and white to the one girl with the red at the end.
Oh, the girl in the red coat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's all black and white, but he's got that like one little splash of red, so you know that's him. And you see that he's in the concentration camp. He's got the barbed wire there, but then in the clouds, you just kind of see the, you know,
The priest
helmet.
Yeah, the helmet. Like, but you could kind of see, if you really notice, you can see the eyes in it in the helmet too. And it's, you know, like the future him looking down on the past him, you know, trapped there as a child, where, you know, it's almost this kind of like, you know, when you're older and you look back on your life and, you know, remember what brought you to where you are, that it's, you know, a pretty poignant cover.
Gentlemen, before we go to mine, look at X-Men number 2, says Magneto triumphant, right?
Yeah.
Now let's go back to 112.
Yeah.
Magneto triumphant. Ain't that something? I like, as you were talking, Dan, I was like, wait a minute, that
sounds familiar.
Yeah.
So there you go. So Dan, once again, man, those covers are amazing. That center cover is, as Uncle Gary affectionately says, and I have taken and used many times over, those are modern art masterpieces.
Yeah, I mean, that one to me, like, you know, there's all kinds of like really cool looking covers, but that's the one that like really, you know, is powerful in a different
drama piece.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, all right, gentlemen, let me go ahead and show you mine. So once again, we've got X-Men number 1. The classic Jim Lee, the gorgeous, the beautiful, the wonderful, that shows Magneto in all his 90s glory, and it couldn't have been drawn any better, I think, at the time. We've said enough about it, so I'll move on. X-Men number 13, I actually saw that the other day at the comic shop. Somebody brought in some books to trade. And I took them, gave them trade credit and all that stuff. And as they're wandering around looking for what they wanted, and I went back through it again, and I was like, man, that is a cool cover. And I believe it's a Christopher Yost cover. And that's just him doing what he does. You can see the force field around him. You could see the power in his eyes. You don't need to see anything more in the helmet. And you just see whatever it is that's around him, what's going on in this particular issue. Magneto means business. And I love that cover. It looks wonderful.
I forgot about that cover. Yeah, I hadn't seen that cover in years. That's a great cover.
Yeah.
Well, no, I don't think Christopher Yost was the
the writer?
Paco
yeah,
Medina
okay.
Was
there
the
you
artist.
go. Yeah. So either way, I get names mixed up. I'm old. My tires don't spin quite as fast. But going to the last cover I have there, I wanted to do something a little different, right? This whole Age of Apocalypse storyline, where all of the X titles changed. You had the Amazing X-Men, the Astonishing X-Men, Excalibur, Gambit and the Externals, X-Man, so on and so forth, Weapon X. This is where, in the Age of Apocalypse universe, Xavier is dead, but Magneto is about as good of a guy as he's going to be, right? And he is leading what's left of the X-Men in a resistance movement against Apocalypse, and it is amazing. If you haven't read it, we're going to get into that a little more later. But that whole cover, I just think, looks fantastic.
Yeah,
love it.
That's on the rack behind me, actually.
That's it. See, perfect, ladies
and gentlemen. Is that Pacheco?
Isn't that
that was Madura?
Madura.
Yeah.
Madura. I don't know if I say his last name right, but yeah,
Joe Madura or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. All
a
right.
funky cold
Madura. He was like that's when he was the hot artist, because he was on.
He was huge.
He was on X-Men, and Chris Bachalo was on Generation X, and they were like two of the real hot young artists at the time.
And you had Andy Kubert on.
He was on the other X-Men book.
Yeah. Yeah. Madura was on Uncanny. Yeah. Yeah.
Cody
and
Capullo
was on X-Force.
Was Gambit. Yeah, on the X-Force that became Gambit and the X-Turtles.
Yeah, man, a lot of good people at the start of their careers.
Yeah,
it was amazing. But let's go ahead and dive into some essential reading. And Dan, we're going to do you first, but we're going to go over Sal's real quick, like we did with the top covers, and then we're going to jump right over to yours. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're just going to give you a quick rundown. X-Men Alpha and Omega, that has to do with the Age of Apocalypse storyline. If you haven't read it, the omnibus you can grab, or by all means, go dive into some back issue bins and find these Age of Apocalypse issues. It was a hot series in the 90s, and it is well worth every bit of paper to read. Uncanny X-Men Volume 1, number 113. We alluded to that a little bit with the top covers, Uncanny number 112. So that's the issue right after that. Sal can give us some more information about that, or Gary, if you want to give a quick synopsis of what 113 could be about.
Well, I tell you what, I had that listed too with another issue that goes with it. You want me to do it then when I do mine?
Yep. Then we'll talk about it more there. And then last but not least for Sal is Uncanny X-Men Volume 1, number 150. And once again, Sal will give us some more information on that during an After Dark episode. But if Sal chose these, we know that they're good.
What 150 is the one where it was revealed that he was
Holocaust
survivor.
Oh, fantastic. So
I have that
better.
listed too. Yep.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get more into that here shortly. But without further ado, Dan, the road is yours. Take us down this list of recommended reading.
All right, so the first one I have is it was one of my covers, Magneto Testament.
Mm-hmm.
So this is not a superhero book. He doesn't even really have his powers in it. They're just kind of alluded to. And I'll say this at the beginning. This is not an easy book to read. This book is very historically accurate as to
is
what
it like
happened.
Watching the movie The Boy in the Striped Pajamas?
Yeah, it's very much like, Schindler's List, any of those things that really that show what happened. Like it, and they wrote in it to Greg Pak when he wrote in the back of it, he's like, I think they took a year or two, in doing the book to like researching it to get it right, to make sure that, that everything in it was accurate, was not exaggerated. And they do not sugarcoat at all what the Nazis did to the Jews, what they did to the gypsies. And like I said, it shows him, and his family, just when the Nazis were coming to power, and then when they were starting to round everyone up, kill them, put them in concentration camps. It's very, like I said, very graphic to a point to what they did to them in the concentration camps. And it just shows, what really happened there, and shows how he got, he was shaped because of it, with what happened to his family, what happened to him. And it starts, like I said, it starts when he's a child, when they're just trying to kind of figure out, what are we going to do? How are we going to try and survive? And, he's in the camp, how he is, escapes the camp with Magda, and it kind of ends shortly right after that. But like I said, it's not an easy book to read, but it's also one of those ones that is something that you should read, not just to get a good sense of Magneto as a character, but it's one of those things they say, history repeats itself. If you forget,
those who forget history are doomed to repeat it.
Yeah. So this is something that's one of those things everyone should read for that. The next one I have is Magneto issue 0, which that is not a common book, though you can get copies on eBay pretty cheap. It was a book that was a giveaway. I can't remember exactly how you got it. I think it was sending something in if you bought another issue of X-Men or something, but it reprints the backup stories with Magneto from Classic X-Men issue 12 and 19, and then the Magneto story from X-Men Unlimited issue 2. So the reason I told Jamie to like list them in this order, because Magneto Testament is him as a child going to what happens to his family, going to Auschwitz, escaping, and then Magneto 0 with these reprints from the stories from Classic X-Men 12 and 19. It starts showing him and Magda after they have escaped the concentration camp. Even though this book came out years and years before, it shows them after they've gotten out of the concentration camp, as they're trying to build a life for themselves, and the mob finding out he has powers, killing his daughter, him killing them, the wife Magda, fleeing him, and him going to Israel, meeting Xavier. Like it builds that and shows more of his background with that, and some of the stuff he went through in his life before he decided to become Magneto. And then X-Men Unlimited 2, that story is reprinted in there as well, when the government decides they're going to kill him, they're going to take him out, and them getting this agent that they are training special to go after him, and they've built him this suit where Magneto can't detect him, and they built him this gun that's like all completely made of plastic, so he can't do anything. And it shows a lot of Magneto's history in that too, and then shows the perspective of this agent that they sent after him, who blames Magneto for the death of his brother. So all in all, it's a really good issue, diving into him. And then, as Tim said, I have Age of Apocalypse on there because, that is just one of my favorite X-Men stories. I love
it's a classic.
I loved the whole thing when they did it. I loved all of it. I've still got all the issues. I've read it multiple times. I would say, as Tim showed on the cover, he is on the cover of Astonishing X-Men #1, and like he was the leader of the team in that book. But really, I'll say Age of Apocalypse as a whole, because for anyone that doesn't know, Xavier's son Legion decides that the world would have been better off without Magneto. His father, would have been better off. So he goes back in time to kill Magneto, but he accidentally kills Xavier instead. And because of that, history unfolds differently, and Apocalypse sees it in the past and goes, oh, mutants are revealing themselves to the world. And so since that happened, he reveals himself years and years and years earlier than he had in the main timeline, and then ends up taking over the world. Magneto, instead of being the villain, he's now essentially the new Xavier, and he rescues all these mutants, and he builds the X-Men. And so even though it's really just Astonishing X-Men that he's in, his presence is throughout the entire
everything,
the entire storyline, because all of the different X-Men groups are all come from him. And then not just them, but the Weapon X book, because Wolverine and Jean had been, and he's not known as Wolverine in this role, he's known as Weapon X, and Jean were part of the X-Men. And Gambit and the Externals are on a mission for him. And the Generation
Next.
Generation Next, like all of them are based around this mission for him. So read the whole thing. It's
fantastic. All right, I'm gonna jump on mine next. So we'll go ahead. Let's see here. We'll start right at the bottom. Right, Dan alluded to Age of Apocalypse as a whole. The Astonishing X-Men 1 through 4 focuses on Magneto as the leader of the X-Men. And you saw in our top covers that issue #1, some of the characters that were back there. Rogue was back there, Sabretooth, Wild Child, and a couple of more. Sunspot, I believe, was in there too.
It was Sunfire. It was
Sunfire. Sorry,
Banshee, Iceman's.
Yeah, but Magneto and Rogue are an item.
Oh yeah, they're married.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm not going to dive any more into that. It's definitely something you need to read, and if you only read that is a great stepping stone to get you to check out some other stuff too. So yeah, definitely do that. Right in the center, X-Men #1 from 1963. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to see where Magneto got his start, his first appearance, and what we were talking about before about him being a one-dimensional villain, which at the time was not necessarily a bad thing. It served its purpose for the books that he was in. Right there is where it starts. X-Men #1 from 1963. And then right up at the top, Fatal attractions, ladies and gentlemen. We have been talking about this the entire episode, and I don't think there's much more to say except for this. So during this whole thing, right, we've given you most of the plot points, but there's one thing that we haven't mentioned that also took place in this that was jaw-dropping. And do either of you remember what that was? It was like right toward the end.
I'm blanking.
When Colossus left the X-Men
Oh yeah.
and
he ended up
joined
going
the Acolytes.
Acolytes, yeah.
Yes. All of this stuff has
Right.
just happened to the team. They are in their darkest hour with their most vile villain, and he is standing above them triumphant, Magneto triumphant. And what happens? Colossus is like, you're right. And I'm going to go with you. I'm going to leave my family that I have been with since I was a teenager, since I was a young adult, and I'm disillusioned by Xavier. I can't follow him anymore. Magneto, I will follow you. Holy smokes.
Forgot about that. Yep.
That happens near the end of Fatal Attractions. Ladies and gentlemen, we've given you bits and pieces. You need to read that. That's all I'll have to say about that. So, Uncle Gary, let's go ahead and talk about yours.
All right. Well, exactly with what Dan had said about Testament, that was a historically accurate treatment. It's like historical fiction where they threw Magneto in there. But as a young man, what happened to him in the concentration camp? Greg Pak took the basis for what Chris Claremont had laid out about him being a Holocaust survivor and part of and at Auschwitz, and then what Pak and the art team did on that. It was just moving. It was powerful. The whole book is pretty much like that cover Dan showed, that it's just all moving, and it is tremendous. So Magneto Testament is thought-provoking, it's poignant, and it's powerful, and another example of when comics transcend and become literature, in my estimate.
And if you, as a side note too, if you get the trade of it, because I think it was 5-issue miniseries, but if you get the trade, at the end of it, there's a story that doesn't have any. It's not connected to the main Magneto story, but it was a short comic that was done because there was an artist, and unfortunately I'm blanking, I forget the name, but it was an artist that was in a concentration camp and was forced to paint by the Nazis to paint these portraits, and the Polish government had the portraits and refused, and the artist had been trying to get them back, and the Polish government had them in this museum and was refusing to give the artist their works back. And it was these comic creators, I think Neil Adams was one of them, that kind of took the artist's side and really pushed for her to get her paintings back, and did this comic as a way to help push the story forward. And they put that in the back of the trade for Magneto Testament.
Wow.
Well, that's pretty powerful. Wow. Very good. Well, that's even more reason to want to look at that.
Yeah.
So my next one is Uncanny X-Men 111 to 113. So Sal had 113. 113 is a great battle issue with Magneto, but you need the other two to lead up to it. And then as a precursor, Uncanny X-Men 104 was the first time that the new team, the new X-Men, had faced Magneto. He totally kicks their ass. And so they have, they have had to run off and lick their wounds after he just decimated them. They're nowhere near ready for him. In 111, they are in a carnival, and their minds have been wiped by Maresmo. And at the end of the issue, you realize, who the big bad is behind everything, and it's Magneto. And that's the big reveal at the end of 111. And then in 112, it's that we show that great cover where he's, got Wolverine's claws going into his face, and he's trying to back him off, and he's got Colossus throwing him around like a ping pong ball. Magneto kicks their ass again. And then in 113, the X-Men Magneto has imprisoned them underneath his volcanic base again, where he wants to be left alone. But he's got them in his base underneath a volcano in Antarctica in the Savage Land. And nobody will find them. And through Storm's ingenuity, they're able to, break free. And when Magneto goes to his base because he knows something's amiss, the X-Men are ready for him. And 113 is one of the greatest battle royale issues you will ever see. And the outcome with Magneto was pretty good. It was pretty good for the good guys. So, but it was a great issue. Led into a couple other great stories where the team got split up, and part of the team didn't know if part of the team thought members were dead. The others thought the others were dead. So it was just a great epic battle underneath an active volcano, and it was pretty amazing. And there was a natural disaster there with the volcano.
That is the mighty Marvel manner right there.
Yes, it is. And that's a cool cover too. 113 is a great cover. But anyway, it's just great battle issue. Cyclops at his best directing his team. I will say that. So now X-Men 150 and 200. I think Sal had 150 on there. 200 is also important, and they're tied together. In X-Men 150 is where we start to see the beginning of the redemption of Magneto, where he maybe starts to see things in a different light, maybe Xavier's vision. And part of that comes with him in 150 hurting Kitty Pryde. He hurts her. And do you remember what it was about Kitty Pryde that kind of was a cold slap of water to his face that shocked him to his core?
Yeah, he saw the Star of David necklace that she was wearing.
Oh, she's Jewish too. That's right.
Yes. So again, Claremont, right? Kudos. He hurts Kitty, and she's just a young girl then, and he sees the Star of David necklace around her neck. And let me tell you, that scene there was repeated in was precursed that in one of the greatest Batman books ever, Batman 237, which one day maybe we'll talk about. But that was from 10 years earlier. And so I believe Claremont probably read that issue and saw a powerful moment like that. But yeah, Magneto sees the Star of David, and he immediately is taken aback and starts to reevaluate what the hell it is he's doing. In that issue, that's when it's revealed he's a Holocaust survivor.
A really good interaction there with him and Storm too.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I don't remember exactly, but I remember there was poignant moments with the team, and then he has started to. I believe he realizes he's in the wrong, and he's going to allow himself to pay for his crimes. And then in X-Men 200, it's the trial of Magneto. And during this trial, was it Fenris? I think Fenris attacks.
Yeah.
And he ends up saving the prosecutor that's trying to put him away. And he is seen as a hero after that. And the aftermath of that, I may be fuzzy on this, but I think maybe Xavier supposedly dies in this issue and we don't see him, or maybe he's hurt real badly. And it's in the aftermath of X-Men 200 is when Charles has asked him to take over the teaching in his school, and that's where he becomes the headmaster for the New Mutants. So as far as character development goes for Magneto, 150 and 200 were huge issues in character development and, in molding the character to become the conflicted character that I find so fascinating.
And that cover for 150 is gorgeous as well.
Yeah,
it is. Yes, absolutely. It is too. It is too.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as always, recommended readings. We recommend those to you. You definitely need to check them out. We are at the last bit here, and I'm going to go ahead and start that off. This is for our choices for best writer and best artist, I think mine is a no-brainer, and I think at least one of these names is going to be on each of your lists. I'm going to say John Byrne and Chris Claremont. I don't think that there's any better duo than that. Chris Claremont, obviously, for writing, and John Byrne for artwork at the peak of character development for X-Men, not even at the peak of their popularity, right? Because it was just a continual rise at this point.
Even when Byrne was on the book, it didn't become the runaway smash until after he left, really.
Exactly. But his work, his line work, and all of that stuff is seamless. It is perfect in my eyes. And I think the likes of Silvestri and Portasio and Lee took inspiration from Byrne and what he did.
Jim Lee definitely did.
And you can see that. So I'm going to let you guys talk about these guys more because you know more than I do. But John Byrne, Chris Claremont, that's my choices for writer and artist. Go ahead, Dan, you're up.
Yeah, I mean Chris Claremont for writer, as we've said ad nauseum through this, like Magneto was a one-dimensional character until Chris Claremont, and like a lot of characters, until Chris Claremont got a hold of him and, took this, this one-dimensional character and made him real, gave him a backstory, and made him someone that, even though he was this terrible villain. And, one of those issues too, that's when he, the infamous thing when he like kills the whole submarine full of, the whole submarine full of I think it was Russian soldiers or Russian sailors. I think it was a Russian submarine.
I know what you're talking about, though. I can't remember who exactly was in it, though.
Yeah, but like
the dead guys.
What?
The dead guys.
Dead guys. Yes, that's exactly.
But Claremont, made him, an interesting character, and added that conflict and added that backstory that really made him a good, unique character. That is the reason that he is as popular as he is. That he became able to stick around for so long without just being, made him more than just a villain of the week. So it's got to be Claremont for that. And I'll agree with you for artists, John Byrne. I mean, I love Jim Lee. He's one of my favorite artists.
Yeah, same here.
But that era of John Byrne doing Uncanny X-Men was just so perfect. And like I said, you take a look at the stuff Jim Lee did with X-Men, and you can look and see directly the his inspiration from Byrne. Like, I mean, you can look at panels and pages that Jim Lee did and like go and find it in John Byrne's run and be like, oh yeah, this came from that. This directly came from that. So as great as Jim Lee is, I got to go with Byrne as the artist too.
All right, Uncle Gary, I am curious to hear what two you were going to choose.
You don't even have to hear it. Y'all have already said it. Chris Claremont, without a doubt, slam dunk. That's it. That's the list.
Yeah.
Chris Claremont, without a doubt. Again, one of the most brilliant additions to the mythos of a character by adding the Holocaust aspect to Magneto.
He built
a one-dimensional character.
He built the mansion the X-Men live in. Plain and
That's
simple.
right.
Yeah.
And he had him grow as a character too. It wasn't just, I added this element so that you could understand where he comes from, but he's still going to be this bad guy. Like he had him grow and change over the years and go from being a bad guy to growing to be a good guy to, going back to, being kind of a bad guy. Like he had to do a lot.
Without a doubt. Look, Magneto was just, if Magneto was architecture, before Claremont, he was just a wall.
Yeah.
Claremont gave him 4 exposures and a roof, turned him into a house.
Right.
So what he did, what he created with that character was such a richness. Just think about, one of the most powerful things in the X-Men movies was when they show him as a kid and he bends the sign.
When he's reaching out, as
they're trying to pull him and he's pulling them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I mean,
and the scene where you saw the number on his arm too, and like they don't really come out and address it, but you just see in the movie, you just see the number on his arm, and you're like, oh yeah.
those scenes don't exist without Chris Claremont writing it. Again, source material, fellas, right? Source material. It doesn't exist without the brilliance of Chris Claremont. So there's no other writer that I think we can even consider.
Right.
As for artists, Dan, I'm with you, and with you, Tim, that Lee, I got to give a lot of kudos to Lee, but to me, it's also John Byrne. At the end of 111, where Magneto's revealed to be the big bad, I mean, that was frightening. He was frightening. And, just the ruthlessness and the way he cut them down in 112, like they were nothing. He was a scythe and they were just wheat. And it was just the power of Byrne's Magneto was amazing. So, which makes it even more palpable and even more powerful when the team rallies back in 113 and kicks his ass, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think we all joke about Cyclops, right? Cyclops is such a dick, but Cyclops, brilliant battle plan in 113, how he's deploying, and they've got some time before he gets there, so they've had time to go over the battle plan, and just brilliant how they attacked him.
Mm-hmm.
But John Byrne, and like you said, you definitely see his influence. That great Jim Lee cover, right? I see the John Byrne influence in that of X-Men 1. You see that John, you see that influence. So I'm with you guys. Chris Claremont, John Byrne.
It is.
And it wasn't I was going to say with Claremont too, it wasn't just that he added that backstory, and made him like a fully realized character. He made him like a threat too, because before that too, it's like he shows up, they fight, the X-Men beat him, and he goes off like, "I'll get you next time." Like, it wasn't really until Claremont took over, he's like, "No, this guy is powerful.
This next time. This time is now."
Yeah, this guy is a legit threat. He's not just going to show up, fight him for an issue. They beat him and he goes. It's like, no, when he shows up, it's a big deal. And he's got the power that, that he's going to be a legitimate, real threat. And they're not going to beat him every time.
Well, think how much more interesting Claremont made Xavier by giving him Magneto as a philosophical foil when Magneto has reformed or has altered his ways a little bit, but they are still at loggerheads on so many issues. It gives Xavier somebody to play off of, where the X-Men aren't really Xavier's peers, but Magneto is his peer. So it gave somebody that Xavier can play off of philosophically. And I think the character of Xavier is lessened without Magneto.
And people always made a big deal about Wolverine, like, oh, his origin shrouded in mystery and all this, until they did the origin series. But like, people forget too, like, that's what Magneto was for a long time. Like, you didn't know what his real name was. They didn't reveal his name until like the 90s. He was around for a long time before, like,
Hewlett Packard, right?
Like he was just Magneto, and then at some point they were like calling him Magnus. But even that, you're like, is that just like a short version of Magneto? Like, is that part of his name? It wasn't until long time after that they revealed, Eric Lensher, and then even farther on, they were like, well, no, his actual real name is this. That's a name he took on later. But
go ahead, finish your thought.
No, I was gonna say, like, that was people forget, like, that was a big part of him too, is that you didn't know anything about him.
Well, gentlemen, I would love to talk about this for the next 3 hours, which I know we can do, but we are getting fast short on time. So, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you that are new readers, we have given you a wealth of information to go ahead and check out the rest for yourself, and you will not be disappointed with one of the greatest villains / maybe heroes in the entire Marvel universe. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, this show comes to an end, and we are going to go ahead and get some business out of the way. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, you can find us on all the socials. All you got to do is type in at the CODEX Station, your favorite social media platforms, and where we're live streaming right now. Make sure to hit the like, share, subscribe, and follow, so that way you don't miss content like this every week. We put new stuff out every day. So at the Codex station, ladies and gentlemen. Also, don't forget, we got a website. It's up, it's new, and it is awesome. TheCodexStation.com. Head over there to get some merch, meet the team, and so much more. Once again, TheCodexStation.com for all your Codex needs.
And a big shout out to Sal for kicking ass on
that is right
on the website.
That is right. And you can find Sal right here on YouTube when he's not doing Codex stuff. All you got to do is type in Sal's Comic Corner right there on YouTube and go see some awesome unboxings, slabs, and a lot more. Once again, Sal's Comic Corner. Now, Dan, the Kelly Art, the road manager for the Ric Flair of comic books, the former owner of Instagram, current seller of X, formerly Twitter. How do you do it 255 days a year, sir?
What a resume. What a resume.
Oh, I've got a whole history for Dan, and it goes into the future. We'll see what happens with his career next.
Well, all of that was really true. Would be a lot nicer. My collection would be much closer to Gary's than it is to what it is.
He's being humble, ladies.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Dan Kelly Art. You could also find me on Twitter there too, and Threads, but I don't really do much with them. But yeah, go to Instagram, find me on there, check out some art, give me a follow. Let me know what you like. Let me know what you want me to see next. Maybe you want me to draw Magneto. Maybe you want me to draw someone else. I don't know. You let me know. Buy a commission so your money becomes my money that can be used to buy more comics.
Threads was offered to him, ladies and gentlemen, but like Google Lens, it went by the wayside.
Google Lens.
Wow.
But last but not least, the man with the plan, the what did we say? Ground zero of finishing moves.
Ground zero.
Ladies and gentlemen, let everybody know where you are tombstone pile driving when you are not steel chairing and steel caging right here on Codex.
Well, thank you very much for that great introduction. I appreciate that. You can find me every Wednesday at Loudoun County, Virginia's only comic book store. We're in Northern Virginia. We'd love to have you come by. On Wednesdays is when I get my fix. I put it right here. I inject that 4-color ink right into these veins, and it gives you power, baby. Gives you big, big muscles by reading comics. So, spinach, that's for Popeye. Comics, that's for the muscle there. So come get some comics. When you're picking up as many stacks as I have, that'll do this. So come see us. We would love to have you. We appreciated having Sal and Dan by last week for our lot con. So that was a great success, a little mini con in our parking lot. So come see us at Comic Logic. We would love to have you. Also, you can find all of us interacting on Comic Character of the Day, the site founded by our good buddy Archduke Kevy. It's the reason so many of us got interconnected was because we met on that site. I do the covers of the day. Dan does a question of the day, panels of the day. Tim's always on that site to make sure that we're doing things correctly. He's watching. He's always watching us. So you can find us there. And then now let's finish up. Let's go to our moderator, the man with that silky baritone, the late night DJ that gets you home. We're here. We're almost home. It's almost time for us to get to bed, but we've got to go just a little further down that road. And who's better to get us? That man on the all-night radio, the one, the only, Tim the Terrible.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is school night and the kids are fast in bed. I know the evening news is about to come on, but before that happens, make sure to check under those beds. Make sure to look in the closets. Make sure to even check in the garbage disposal. Make sure there are no mutants floating around. It is 10:47 p.m., ladies and gentlemen. Do you know what your kids are? Yeah. And with that,
that's good.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, this comes to an end of another comic character of the week, the Master of Magnetism, Magneto. My name is Tim the Terrible. This guy over here is Dan the Kelly Art, and down below is the Ric Flair of comic books, Uncle Gary himself. Ladies and gentlemen, we will see you next time.
We have that one gaping hole without Sal here.